Like, what are the techniques that they were using that were like causing her to faint?
The big ones were waterboarding, the cold cell, and sleep deprivation. Sleep deprivation doesn't sound like any big deal. And when that finally leaked, Don Rumsfeld, who was the Secretary of Defense at the time, made a statement that still kind of sticks in my mind. He said, there is no such thing as sleep deprivation. He said, I have a stand-up desk in my office. I don't even have a chair in my office. And sometimes I'll work 24 hours and then into the next day, 36 hours. But that's not what we're talking about here. We know from the American Psychological Association that people begin to lose their minds at day 7 with no sleep. And they begin to die. Their organs begin to shut down at day 9. But the CIA was authorized to keep people awake for 12 days. And that was another thing that caused prisoners to just die. They would have heart failure, you know?
How'd they keep them awake?
You chain them to that eye bolt in the ceiling again. You have these industrial strength lights on them 24 hours a day and like death metal 24 hours on volume 11. And they just can't sleep because if they collapse, they'll pull their arms out of their sockets. They're chained to that eye bolt.
Jeez.
It was bad. And then when people would die, they would just dig a hole next to the interrogation building, put them in the hole, cover it up, and then bring the next guy in.
No report, no nothing.
Nothing. There was one guy they reported on, and headquarters wrote back and said, just put him on ice until we can figure out what to do. And they literally just put him in a bathtub and filled it with ice, and then just decided a couple days later he started to turn. We should probably bury this guy.
Wow.
Yeah, it was ugly. And the Justice Department never said anything about that. They're like, oh, listen, you can do these techniques, and if you kill him, just bury him out back. Nah, that wasn't the approved operation.
Was any of it effective? Like, was there any actionable information?
That's the worst part of this. No, none of it was effective. We knew from our own files that there was this guy out there who called himself Mukhtar, who was a very bad guy. In 1996, he had initiated something called the Bojinka operation. It was supposed to be carried out in the Philippines, and the idea was to hijack as many as 14 747s and then fly them into buildings all up and down the west coast of the United States. It just so happened that one day, Mukhtar, working on his plan, his diabolical terrorism plan, he went out to have lunch. And when he went out to have lunch, the cleaning lady came in to clean the apartment. And she sees all this stuff laid out. And she said, that looks like a terrorist attack being planned. She calls the cops. The cops come and say, ooh, this looks like a terrorist attack. We better call the Philippine Intelligence Service. They come and look at it, and somebody says, we should probably call the CIA on this. And so we confiscated everything, and Bojinka was disrupted.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
A cleaning lady.
You never know. You just never know.
It's just crazy that he would leave the plans just laying around.
Thinking nobody's going to come, nobody's going to see it. And then he ran off. So we knew there was this guy out there planning this big thing, and his name was Mukhtar. Abu Zubaydah laughed at us and said, you don't know who Mukhtar is? And Ali said, no. And Abu Zubaydah said, his name is Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. That's the first time we ever heard that name. We didn't have any documents in any files that were about any guy named Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. But that was the very first time we were able to piece it all together. And it was thanks to Abu Zubaydah, in turn, thanks to Ali Soufan's treating Abu Zubaydah with respect. But on August the 1st, 2002, George Tenet went to the White House, and he asked the president, for reasons that have never been made clear, he asked the president to turn over primacy to the CIA. He did that. And the CIA director, Robert Mueller, to his credit, he knew exactly what was going to come. Not only withdrew FBI personnel from the secret site, he withdrew FBI personnel from the country that the secret site was in. And within 12 hours, the CIA began to torture Abu Zubaydah. He went completely silent and remained silent. And then the FBI went back to the president and said, look, the CIA is screwing this up. We were getting all this intelligence from this guy. Now he won't say anything. And we're putting him in a coffin. And we heard that he had this irrational fear of bugs. So we pour a box of cockroaches on him in the coffin and close up the coffin. And we would open it up every couple days to change his diaper and give him food. And he went nuts. And so finally, the White House turns everything back over to the FBI. It takes Ali months to get him to talk again. And then he starts talking again. And he's given us more and more information about Al-Qaeda operations in Malaysia and anti-Australia operations and what's going on in Canada and how Al-Qaeda is able to move across borders between Europe and Asia. And then the CIA comes back in again and starts torturing him again and screwed it all up.
Now, why would they do that? I don't understand. If you're getting information, why would they decide to ramp it up and torture him?
I think for a couple of reasons. I think we should never underestimate the motivating factor of a desire for revenge. Right? This was the worst intelligence failure in the history of the country. 3,000 people died because we hadn't done our jobs. So that was one thing. The other thing is the CIA had entered into an agreement with these two contract psychologists, James Mitchell and Bruce Jessen, in October of 2001. And they said, hey, we've reverse engineered the military's SEER program, and we think this would be an effective but harsh interrogation technique. And so we were chomping at the bit at the agency to try this thing out without using the word torture. We paid those guys $108 million to say, oh, we think you should torture people. Here are the torture techniques. Just let us know when you want us to start. $108 million for that. And so we thought, well, we've already spent the money and we really do want revenge on these guys. So what the hell? Let's just go for it. I think that's what it was.
Wow.